Abstain.
Well,
We did it.
interesting.
Did it.
That's like 7th, 8th grade.
Wow. I hope we're all good to go. I didn't check first. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the April 18th, 2023 City Council meeting. Please let the record reflect that all council members are present, with the exception of Councilmember Lopez. First up, I'll ask Vice Chair Ritchie to perform the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. If you would please stand if you're able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job. Good coordination. Thank you. Please join us for a moment of silence. Thanks. Now there's time for acknowledgments. If anyone has one, any council members have acknowledgments?
Chair, we should acknowledge former council member Doug Stevens is with us today. Honored us with his presence. I think it's the first time you've been back since you took a powder, didn't it? Yeah.
No ice cream or popcorn tonight. I'm sorry. Any others? Well, one thing I would like to acknowledge is that April is actually Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And I wanted to make sure to just share the information about, if you need any support as a person that might have experienced sexual assault. We know the rates have been climbing over the last year especially. There's a support number, 1-888-421-1100, 24-hour sexual violence crisis line. And you can reach out for support. That's all for me. Any other acknowledgements? Okay, great.
You're good.
Oh, good. Okay. I always look for signals that people have something to say. Okay. We're really happy this evening to be able to offer recognition to Charles Chip Hislop, and excited to have Chick's sons here, Lance and Chris and family. Just Lance. I'm sorry, just Lance. And also Councilmember Stevens here to offer remarks. We've asked Councilmember Heyer to read the recognition.
Yes, Chair, thank you. This is a great honor for me, as I am an alumnus from Ben Lomond, and he spent the first part of his career there. We're sorry to hear for his passing, and please accept our condolences for your loss. But the Ogden City Council and Mayor proudly recognized Charles Chick Hislop for providing invaluable contributions to the Ogden community. Charles Chick Hislop is a legendary track and field coach and a beloved member of the Ogden community. His Hall of Fame coaching career spanned nearly 50 years, including 10 years at Ben Lomond High School and 38 years at Weber State University. Throughout his career, Chick had a profound impact on numerous athletes in Ogden and around the world. During his tenure at Weber State, Chick built an impressive resume, winning numerous Big Sky championships and producing a multitude of All-American athletes. He is widely recognized as a prominent steeplechase technique expert and has generously shared his knowledge and expertise with numerous coaches throughout the nation. Chick also helped coach the USA men's track and field team during the 1996 Summer Olympics. We are saddened by Chick's passing and offer our sincere condolences to his family, friends, and other close associates. We are grateful for his significant contributions to our community and unwavering commitment to excellence. His dedication and passion for coaching have left a lasting legacy and will continue to inspire generations of athletes for years to come. This is presented this 18th day of April, 2023. Thank you, you guys, for being here.
You can step on up and accept the recognition and shake our hands, and we'd love to take a photo with all of you if you'd like.
Come on up. We'll start here. We'll go that way. That's usually the best way to do it.
Around back?
No, just right along
Okay.
the front there.
It didn't mention how it's named Chick. Chick was in Prohibition. They used Chick instead of Chuck for Charles. And my grandmother said, you can name him Charles, both sides of the family, but I'm going to call him Chick. She got what she wanted.
Hey, why don't you come up here, bring the rest of your family up?
Have your family like to come up for a photo?
Just right here.
No, Doug, would you like to come, or anybody else that would like to be part of the photo?
Anyone here for Chick?
Awesome. Okay, looking here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I think we're good. Thank you.
If you'd like to say any words, you're
We'd
welcome.
love to hear from you. Yeah, let's hear from you first.
Okay. That's too bad, because as I said at my father's funeral with Hislops, we have a saying that the first liar never wins, and he's going to get the last word. My father did love Ogden, guys. He grew up on Harrison. He raised his family on 7th Street and 1250 at the mouth of the canyon. He and my grandfather subdivided the Rolling Hills division up at the mouth of the canyon. Spent his entire career in Ogden. Started off as a 6th grade teacher. Coached at Ben Lomond and taught at Ben Lomond. And then in 1969, he moved up to Weber State and stayed there for the rest of his collegiate career. 2 highlights that he had. Well, the year that his team took 4th, which is the highest that any team from Weber State has ever taken, the last regular season cross-country meet, his team was ranked 24th. That's not given a lot of respect. They won the mountain region and jumped all the way up to 14th, which, considering how high other schools were ranked that they beat, again, was not given a lot of respect. At the national meet, they came back and took 4th. As my father would say, little old Weber State beat all of the big guys in Division I. For the next few years, even when he didn't have a great team, the rest of the nation gave him respect, and oftentimes even had teams that were ranked higher than what they really should have, given him the respect that he deserves. One coach who has won numerous national team championships, I got a chance to spend some time with him and my dad. They'd talk late into the night discussing things. And this coach, his name's Martin Smith. He coached at Virginia, Oregon, Oklahoma, Iowa, and Wisconsin. And he made the statement that my father is one of the few people that I will ever meet who made significant changes, global changes in the sport that he coached. He specialized in the steeplechase up at Weber State and would take people who were barely good enough to place on a big sky level in the 5,000 or 1,500, train them in the steeplechase, and because of how efficient he could get them to go over the hurdles and the water jump, they would beat people that had times significantly better than theirs. The very best people in the nation would come and run against little old Weber State in the steeplechase. And they knew they were in for a battle. Thank you very much for giving him this recognition. When he retired, Ogden City did a Chick Hislop Day. It was one of the things that he treasured, because Ogden has been an awful lot to him. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Former council member Stevens, did you want to say some words?
Chair, I got a call from Councilmember Stevens on Sunday, like our usual old time, and
He's called me on
he
Sundays
lobbied to
before,
be able
too.
to do this. So I'm glad we can honor this.
It's great to be here. It seems like old home week. Even every once in a while, we go to class reunions, and it's nice to come back. Someone said when you fall off a bike, you get it back on, and this you don't miss the techniques that you had before. We never called Coach Hislop Chick. That was one thing we did not do. He was coach. And as I reflect on his life and his experience that I've had with him, and all of us want to make some type of impact in the nation that we live in the community we live in the neighborhood we live in, and those individuals we come in contact. Coach Hislop made an impact on young men so that they could be better, so they could do the best that they could do. There's an old saying in the Army, it says, be all you can be. Well, Coach Hislop took those young men and had an impact on those individuals that will go on and on and on for a lifetime. The reason he had that is because he had a love. He had a love for the institutions that he represented. I have a plaid tie on because he loved the institution of Ben Lomond High School. I have this purple jacket on because he loved the institution of Weber State. That was just who he was. So he had a great love. But most important of all, he had a love for his athletes. I have a friend with me tonight in Vance Anderson, and Vance was relating to us. He said, Coach would come to me and I would do a workout, and he says, Anderson, you can do better than that. And we'd always hear that. He always wanted us to do better than what we had before. And so he had a love for his athletes. But most important of all, Coach Hislop had a love for his family. That was the foundation of this individual that we represented today. The other aspect that Coach Hislop is that he had a standard. We all knew what the standard was. We all participated at different levels. It didn't matter what athlete you were, at what level you were, but you knew of his standard. And his standard is that you gave the best you could. He showed respect to all. Every one of his athletes, whether you were the top athlete or you were the middle or you were the bottom, he respected you. And he always told you that you were important to him. He wanted the best for those individuals who he was under his direction. When I was in ninth grade over at Mount Fort, I'd always hear about this guy up at Ben Lomond. And they say, oh, he does this, he does that. And I said, well, if I go up there, I'll see what he's like. He took athletes from other sports and brought them into his sport and made them second, first, or third in state, where they weren't in these other sports. He expected the best if you were going to perform for him. He cared about us. He cared how we participated. He cared how we were doing in school. But most important of all, he cared about us as individuals. I am a better person today for my association with Coach Hislop. What I've done in my life is contributed to the talents and the techniques that he taught to me. So I am grateful for him that he was able to, that I had association with him. I knew how a winner should win. He always gave us an analogy. He says, when the tough gets going, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. So I'm appreciative of Coach Hislop and what he's contributed to my life, and I thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Any comments from council members?
Chair, I'd like to just make a comment. When I moved into the area, we lived pretty close to Chick, and had no idea who he was, or Coach Blaisdell, who lived right up the street as well, and just was really impressed with that early introduction to Chick. But then over the years, as I've worked on different committees and with Weber State, one thing that I think just needs to be mentioned was his philanthropic efforts with regards to the athletes. And I think every academic award banquet that I ever attended for the student athletes was the awards and the dinner were sponsored by Coach Hislop. There were several times at Cat Bashes where the raise to paddle was going to be matched up to a certain amount by Coach Hislop, and so he really did love the athletes in a lot of ways. And of course, academic or athletic performance was extremely important, but so was academic performance as well. He believed in both of those things, and so I think that was really very impressive for me. So,
Thank you. Any other comments?
I have.
Oh. Does he need a mic? Just 1 second. He'll
Is
get
this okay if I,
Oh yeah, you can reach if that works for you.
oh,
We're happy to bring you a mic though.
okay,
Sure.
a mic would be fine.
You gotta have.
Okay.
Will that work or
I
there's
think
the
it
hand?
would be amiss if I were not to say something. I was the Anderson that Doug was talking about,
I thought so.
and Coach Hislop taught me things about myself that I didn't know. I was a very shy, introverted person. He wrote a book here a while back, a few years ago, and I was surprised to see that I was chapter 5 in that book. And just briefly, what he taught about me. When I was in high school, through a weightlifting accident, I broke my back. And my whole life ahead of me was with athletics, sports. And that was taken away in an instant. But again, what Coach Hislop taught me was this: Anderson, you can do better than that. And just to make a long story short, I took those lessons, and I took it to a wheelchair. And so running was something that I enjoyed to do, but I took the wheelchair and I competed in the wheelchair. And I've done the Boston Marathon 4 times, taking third at one time. been invited by other countries to represent the United States. In Japan, I've been over there a few times, Germany, Switzerland, and it was all because of what Coach Hislop taught me. Beyond that, I was able to go to Weber State, get a degree from Weber State, and then get a master's degree in social work. So I came out of there with a licensed clinical social work, and have been able to take some of those principles and teach them to others. And so again, if it wasn't for him, what can I say? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll say something quick, Chair. As many of you know, I'm kind of a sports junkie, and the best part of being a sports junkie is you get to debate, right? Who's the best, or who's the top 10, or who's the whatever. And a long time ago, me and some buddies were talking about that, about who's the greatest of Weber State, and I remember someone that I respected really a lot said, you can't have this discussion unless Coach Hislop's on that list. If you're going to have a Mount Rushmore of Weber State, Coach Hislop's got to be on that mountain. And I didn't know much about him then, and so I kind of wanted to get to know more about him, and I was blown away by the success that he had. But after tonight and coming here tonight, which has been truly inspirational. I mean, I don't think you can have a Mount Rushmore of Ben Lomond without Coach Hislop, and it doesn't sound like you can have one of Ogden or definitely the north part of town without Coach Hislop. And so I just think what an inspiration to truly have that kind of an impact on, like former council member Stevens had said, that kind of impact on not only your neighborhood, but the place where you worked and the community that you served. And so I'm glad that we were able to do this tonight, and I appreciate everything that Coach Hislop stood for, and the lessons that he taught, and the opportunities that we get to hear about those lessons, and the wonderful inspiration that he was to so many. So thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, I had a chat with Coach Blaisdell about Coach Hislop on numerous occasions, because we both knew him because he was kind of a neighbor. And he would have been here tonight to sing his praises also, but he's in Oklahoma. We didn't give him enough notice, but I did want to make sure that you knew that he was aware of this and was highly supportive. So it's apparent that Coach Hislop has a great progeny, and we are grateful that you're here to accept his recognition.
Thank you. Right. Well, up next on the agenda, we have the Ogden City Flood Preparations presentation, and we're inviting Ken Miller, the Battalion Chief and Emergency Manager of Fire, Chief Matthew, the Fire Department, and Jay Louder, Director of Public Services. I'm not sure who's up first. Welcome. I know everyone's very interested to hear the status.
Council Chair Chaburka, thank you. Other council members, thank you for allowing us the time to give you some information. This is going to be a three-part presentation, and I'll do the first part, which has to do with what happened last Tuesday night and Wednesday night up on Douglas Street. And then the second part will be the general flooding preparations that Jay will present, and then Kenny will finish up with overall emergency management issues that are going on not only here in Ogden, state, and regionally. So first of all, I'm not here to eat crow, but to drink some water. This is the Douglas Trailhead, and let me just give you a little bit of a chronological report of what occurred. Around 7:30, the fire department was notified of a flood concern up in this area. When our engine responded up there, the captain reported to me he saw very little bit of water in one of the yards, and it didn't look like it was getting any worse. There was hardly any flow at all. Didn't contact any responsible party, looked around and pretty much dismissed it as thinking, well, there's a little bit of runoff. It was a warm day. I don't think it's going to get any worse. And so he just released from scene without notifying anybody. In terms of the fire department, what I would say is in hindsight, his size up of this situation might have been undersized, but he didn't know where it was going, and I'll get a little bit more into that in a minute. So here you can see roughly about 100 people in action, and I'm not sure exactly what this time was, but it was later in the evening when we had more fire department personnel and public works personnel, but that wasn't until we were called back. And so that was around 7:30. At 8:30, we were called again for the same problem. And when our engine responded back up there, there was water flowing into the property on the right side of the cul-de-sac or the north side of the cul-de-sac. And this hadn't occurred yet here. If you notice this picture here, this was at 12:49 a.m. But around 8:30 p.m., there was a little bit more water flowing into that area. And once again, he underestimated where this incident was going, whether it was going to get worse or get better. And he was asked by the property owner to help and assist with some railroad ties to divert the water away from his property, which he assisted and helped do that. Even at that time, he didn't notify Public Works at all. He just thought this was just some runoff from the hillside. It's probably going to subside. It looks like we're controlling the path, so it doesn't look like much is going on. I'm not quite sure when all the volunteers got activated, but between 8:30 and 9:30, because the same unit got sent on a chest pain call, so they were called away and went on this medical call. And the 911 center called and says, hey, it's still getting worse. Can you respond back up there? At that time, our battalion chief responded back up there around 9:30, along with our engine, and he reported to our department administration that says there's about 100 people up here that are working to kind of divert this water. And it's looked like it's a pretty good flow. And this person the battalion chief didn't know what the previous flow was. He just knew that it was a pretty good flow and it was similar to what you're seeing here. And there was a lot of volunteers up there working hard to move that water. At that time, I got a phone call and I said, well, we got to send firefighters up because if we have that many community members working that hard, we need to be up there hand in hand working with them. And have we notified Public Works? Well, at that time, the battalion chief notified Battalion Chief Kenny Miller, and Kenny made a phone call to Vince and said, hey, we think we have a problem up here. And what Vince did, and I'll let him correct it if I misstate it, is he notified the water on-call person to respond up there. And so that one person responded up there, and by around 10:30, there was a lack of communication between fire and Public Works because I think fire thought a group of Public Works people were going to be there, not just one. And so when I called back and says, okay, so who is all up there in Public Works? Because this seems like this is a real big problem, and what are we doing? And they said, we thought Vince was notified because Kenny called him, but Vince sent one person up. So I called Vince, apologized, woke him up, and said, I think this is a bigger deal than what we think it is. It's turning into a lot more flow. I'm not sure where it's coming from. Frankly, earlier in the day on Tuesday, Jay had reported in department head that they were going to possibly talk to the canal companies about opening up the canals to bleed off some water from the river so the river wouldn't be as high and maybe open them sooner. And I thought, I wonder if a floodgate, headgate or something from the canal is clogged and it's leaking and pouring over, because this just seems bizarre. I've been the fire chief since 1995, and I've never seen this even in our other high runoff periods. And I'll get into that because I'm not going to try to explain away any of our shortcomings. But what I would like to explain is this is a highly unusual and abnormal event. Nowhere else with these temperatures did we see any kind of flow like this along the East Bench at all since then, or that night or that day and since then. So this flow was redirected, and I very much appreciate the volunteers and the church groups that organized to divert this away from the homes and take it down the middle of the cul-de-sac. Very good move under emergency conditions to get it away from personal property, bring it down the road. And as you can see, the debris that's coming down, there's a pretty good flow of water. And it's continuing to grow. It's not subsiding. Now it's almost 1 o'clock in the morning. By then, because Vince had been notified, called additional people in, we had a fair amount of Public Works personnel present. We had some firefighters up there assisting, and they were ensuring that this water was being diverted down into the storm drain system, which would eventually hit Harrison and get down to the Ogden River. So as you can see, volunteers plus Ogden City Public Works personnel, and we had some firefighters up there. It's almost 1 in the morning. And we're now fully engaged, but there was a period of time, and I'll say the fire department essentially could have notified Public Works 2 hours earlier than what they did, but they didn't think this incident was that significant, or didn't think it was going to grow to the degree of what it grew into. So again, not knowing exactly where it was coming from, they thought it was just a typical runoff. As you can see all the lights in the background, those are the volunteers up there digging that trench out. Also, some canal company people were up there, up around the canal, and they were digging a big diversion around it to make sure it didn't damage their infrastructure and it got into this channel and got down to the road. This is from up above with the volunteers up there. Channel 5 had this picture of the volunteers up there. And as you can see, the whole street's lined with either volunteers, fire department, public works personnel. And they're getting the thing mitigated to the extent that the water's going down the road and into the storm drain. Okay, so this picture up here, this is the work that was done by the canal personnel. And as you can see, in looking at this trough, how significant this water flow was. I've ridden my bike up on those trails for many years. This took out a good section of the trail area where this channel just dug right through the trail area, and it flowed a large amount of water for at least 2 days, in which we've never seen before. What I can tell you is that, and Jay will get into this in our preparations with streams and rivers that we've prepared for because we've seen that, we've got prime recognition of what's happened in the past, so we've prepared for that. This is not in our past. So we never prepared for it in terms of this sudden development of a creek or stream that just manifested itself, and we have an issue and we have to now redirect it away from homes because we haven't seen this. So 12:30 in the morning, this looks good, right? The water is flowing, it's going into the storm drain, and it's 12:30 in the morning, and this worked out pretty well. In the meantime, I believe you received some dialogue. The mayor's office and the CAO received some dialogue about some frustration with our response. Mark arranged to have a meeting with us on Thursday. Prior to that meeting, we'd asked Kenny to set up a meeting with police, fire, and public works on Wednesday. We met at 3 o'clock Wednesday afternoon, and thank goodness we did, because we put some measures into play, changing what we learned from miscommunication, a lack of communication, and a lack of activation for something that spontaneously can occur. And within a couple hours, we have a significant magnitude of an event that we need a lot of bodies and a lot of resources in a hurry. So because of this, we ended up with this Wednesday night. At 5 o'clock, the fire department had deployed a sandbag trailer with 2 pallets of sandbags on it in hopes that if we get any kind of flood call, we will now have a response unit that will go to a flood with 2 pallets of sandbags. We put that in service at 5 o'clock. At 7:30, 2.5 hours later, it was used. It was used at Harrison and Douglas. Because as you can see in the picture lower left, we're placing sandbags across the street on Harrison into the ADA crosswalk there, because that water is now not going down the storm drain and it's going to go into that house right there. So we're sandbagging that to mitigate that water that's flooding the street away from that home. The vac truck was up there, and it ended up between Wednesday night and Thursday morning, it filled 3 times. The manhole to the left upper is from all the sediment that came down over the last 2 days, and that was a manhole 30 or 40 feet away from that storm drain. It was totally compacted. And as you can see that, no water was going to flow out of it. So I guess the point I'm making is the lessons we learned on Tuesday night, we put some immediate steps into play to not only improve activation, but also have mitigation tools in the works. In the previous preparation for flooding, we used to deliver sandbags to whoever wanted it. People would use them for stagnant water. Sandbags are used for diversion of flowing water. Nothing more, nothing less. And so, yeah, you could put some up around a home to try to keep it from flowing in, but if it's just standing water, it's going to get into your basement. If it's groundwater, sandbags are not going to do any good. That's why we don't place them all over the community. We want them to be placed strategically and just prior to them being needed. Now, that's a tricky question if we don't know exactly when they're going to be needed. But I think with the streams and creeks, Jay will probably cover this, but I think we know the pinch points, and Vince and his folks are on top of this. But we didn't know about this. So we diverted the water, allowed the vac truck to work, fire department, public works working that. One other step that we put into motion because of our communication gaps. When the public works is notified for any kind of issue from either police or fire, it goes to the 911 center and they make a phone call to a singular number, and it either goes to the operations office if they're on duty, or if it goes to the on-call person if they're not on duty automatically. And that one person is notified and responds to the scene at our request. It could be Wildcat is covered in ice and we can't get a fire truck up there and we need a sand truck. It could be a host of public works needs. What that doesn't do is it notifies one person, but doesn't notify a cadre. The other things we put into play is we sat around the table on Wednesday and said, how else can we get resources to the scene and who can bring them? We additionally talked with code enforcement, and they now have a trailer with 2 pallets of sandbags on it. And they're within the response mode. Talked with Jay, and Jay says, yep, we're going to turn our public works personnel into first responders when it comes to flood events. And now he's got a big 10-wheeler with 6 pallets, 6 pallets of sandbags on a big trailer, so the big guns come. So our theory behind it is the fire department will respond with a couple of pallets, secondary code enforcement will have a couple more, and then the big artillery, it'll come in at a little later time, and it might take an hour to get them to the scene. But at least we've got hopefully a seamless response to resources and personnel. In addition to the notification to the on-call person, we talked with the 911 center, and now what'll happen is when we call on our radio and say, will you get us a public works response on this flood, it will not only call the on-call, but every manager in public works will get an informational page of a flood that we're responding to. And that every one of those managers will now know that we're being activated, and then they'll know to either activate their resources, and per Mark's direction, he wanted to over-respond to any kind of flood event. So he wants to have our truck going, code enforcement's truck going, and public works truck going until we know otherwise if we need that many resources or less than that. But lessons learned is that we've really improved the response capability to an immediate, unplanned water flow event that, I'll be honest with you, never even anticipated this. I think this is it's not making an excuse. We could have done better, but it's an abnormal event. And let me show you some of the evidence I tried to find just to show you that. So that's my hand up there, and that's a rock that's bigger than my hand. That's on top of the snow, on top of an entire snowbank. That whole picture on the left is covered in rocks and debris. Where this is located at is just below, and I don't know if you've ever been at the top of this canyon, but I hiked up there yesterday because I was trying to find where did all this water come from and why so much so fast. Was it all the tributaries from the lateral sides of the south and the north contribute to this? I don't believe so, and I'll show you why. That waterfall is flowing like a couple of feet per second, or maybe, I don't know, 2 cubic feet per second right now. And it's unrestricted, it flows down, it goes into a little puddle, it travels above ground for about 40 feet, and then it goes underground. You go about another block down the hillside, maybe it's 500 yards, I mean, maybe it's a quarter block, but when you're climbing the rocks in that hill, it seems like a long ways. At this level right here, this is the last hurrah before you get up to the top of the mountain. And the only way to get up there is, I wish I had some of our technical guys, because there's a climbing rope attached to one of those sides you could climb up, but I wasn't silly enough to try that. Here's a theory that I want to throw out to you. At the base of this waterfall, 20 feet below it, there's a swath of debris 25 feet wide. So this volume of water originated above that. It didn't originate in the mid-elevation. It originated above that waterfall, because you can see the debris flow, and it's as wide as it is all the way down. So it didn't collect it on its way down. And so here's a theory. I'm not a hydrologist. I'm just throwing this out. I'm wondering if there was an avalanche up there, an ice dam, or something that broke loose that had all this water up there and just cut it loose, and it flowed for a day and a half until it emptied itself out. Not sure if that's the case, but that's a theory. The reason we're trying to find this out is not to explain away anything that we did or didn't do. It's to understand what happened. Because if we understand what happened, we can be that much better prepared if it happens again. And one of the things Jay and I have talked about is the possibility, I don't know that our drone from the police department will get that high, but if not, maybe using DPS and their helicopter to travel all of our canyons to look for any potential ice dams, restricted water sources, or anything that we could say, oh, there's a puddle, there's a small pond, there's something that could end up coming down. I'm not sure that this theory is accurate, but what really surprised me is that night I thought, a breach in the canal had occurred. I couldn't understand how come so much water was coming down and only in that one place. And if you need any evidence to kind of understand what was occurring, just go see the crevice that was created with all the flow of water. Significant repair is going to have to occur to the trail, to a lot of things up there.
Yeah, I've seen the pictures over and over, yeah.
So let me show you two little videos, because this will give you the perspective I had up there yesterday.
Standing.
See, this is the width of that trough. There's a waterfall, and that from that my feet all the way across was how much area flowed the water. And you can see there's snow on that side. The debris that fell on the snow that hadn't melted is covered in rocks that came off of that waterfall, and that snow's not even melted.
So the theory is, was
So
there
where-
a blockage up there, maybe an avalanche, blocked up the melting water back up
And this
there,
is where I was just saying, this is
and then it broke loose.
kind of a theory of what could have
Tremendous
happened.
amount came over for a couple days, and now there's hardly anything. Will we ever know?
I think this is just more of the same, but I think I walked up there to show you all the rocks on the top of that snow. But I've got a bunch of other pictures, but I was just befuddled about why this happened. And I still don't know for sure what the answer is, but the whole reason why we want to know, like I said earlier, is so we can better prepare if it were to happen again. And then we can predict where it happens, and
So the theory
be
is,
better
was there
prepared.
a
But in the
blockage up
meantime, in
there,
case
maybe
one
an
of these
avalanche
does happen,
blocked up the
we do
melting
have this
water
new
back up
response
there.
plan in place just
And
for an
then it broke
immediate
loose,
flood call, so we
and a
can
tremendous
send
amount came
resources
over.
much quicker and be in a much more
couple
coordinated
days,
event.
and now
We've also
there's
got, police
hardly
isn't here
anything.
tonight, but the police department is doing some things with Public Works and drones, and I'll let Jay get into that. So with that, turn it over to Jay so he can talk about.
I just have a quick question. It seems like you might have a question, but Chief Matthew, so when the people were calling, were they calling 911 or were they calling just that number that we've,
They were calling 911 and saying, we needed help, we have water up here flowing. And it wasn't until our battalion chief was up there and I heard that, I says, what, give me a visual picture of this. And so, well, there's about 100 people up here. I says, what?
Vice Chair Ritchie was sending us all pictures after the meeting. He was up there working.
And I thought, well, if there's 100 people trying to divert the water, we need to get as many people as we can up there now. And I'll take the hit for that, because I think our personnel undersized the situation, didn't think it was going to get worse, thought that it was cooling down in the evening, it'd probably just, slow down. But, when we apologize for not being quicker to the punch and getting our Public Works folks there, because there are big guns when it comes to mitigating some of these things.
I could just make a comment too. I think the response from the neighborhood was amazing. I mean, there were quite a few people I know personally that just brought out their tools and just got the word out. I got up there about 10:30 and was there till right around 12:30, 1 o'clock. There were actually two flows going through. So people were spread out across probably a quarter mile trying to figure out where to divert water. And so, I mean, it was a little bit, it was interesting, but I think once kind of there was a direction made as to where we're going to put this water, like everyone just assembled, and it was pretty awesome to watch.
Yeah, and we feel bad that we didn't have somebody up there that, not only from the fire department, from a safety reason, and from a public works stand, to kind of coordinate the mission of what we were trying to accomplish. And we could have done better at that.
Chief, did your flows go up and then peak and then come back down? Or did they go up, stay up?
It stayed up until, I
suddenly
think,
drop.
right around, it flowed Tuesday and Wednesday. By Thursday, it had stopped. By Friday, it was dry.
So it was stable?
Yeah, it flowed, well, it built up over time. The first two, from 7:30 till like maybe at midnight 1, it built up.
Yeah.
And then it sustained.
And then it stayed?
And then it
until
started to drop.
And then it drops it?
It just dropped off. And
So that hydrograph shape you just mentioned suggests strongly that what you concluded is true, that some kind of a dam broke, right? Because it takes time for the water to build the channel that it exits that
And
basin
build the
from.
flow.
And that's when it's building, and then it's all releasing until it's done, and then it takes a while for it to just trickle off. So,
Well, and-
that
and-
shape is exactly what you said.
Is it? Well, and that's what we want to understand, because if we have any more, and if we could take a helicopter up there and look at all those canyons and say, oh, there's one, then maybe we do something to mitigate it and prepare for it. But we've never
Could have saved
seen
you a
this.
hike.
What's that?
Could have saved you a hike. But it's good for you. We're glad you're
I
still
needed it.
We're glad you're still with us.
It's fun that you hear that.
Chair, can I ask a question too?
Sure.
You know, right at that same time, North Ogden started flooding around Fruitland. Was it the same kind of deal, or was it something different?
It was similar, and then they called Vince and Jay for sandbags at 2:30 in the morning. and
Yeah, I think
we
they
gave
gave
them
all
a
theirs
few hundred
away.
sandbags because they'd given all theirs away.
I just wondered if that was, you know, this year's problem, the mysterious thing, or.
That's what we're trying to figure out. Is this going to be continue? And then from, is it 10 years down the road, we have a similar water year and we go, oh, remember when? We also have these things to be concerned with. Let's go see if we can scan the mountain and look for any of that.
Yeah.
It was just something that my prime recognition was not there. I've never seen that before.
Well, the call came to me, and we've been talking about the river so much, and the message was, the mountain is flooding. And I was like, what? The mountain is flooding? Anyway, okay.
I never would have thought of it either, but it makes sense with the deep thaw that we had and then the deep freeze. So you could have had
that build up.
had that build up and then a freeze. that
Maybe
would
an
dam it.
avalanche or something, or an ice dam or something. Retain
Wow. Pretty interesting.
Crazy.
Well, before I get into my presentation, a couple other things. Another unique thing with this year's snowpack is we've never had this much water content in the snow itself, so it's made it a very dense ice. And so it's going to react differently even when it breaks and so forth. So we've never had this much water that I can ever remember in the water equivalent in the snowpack. So that's it. The other one thing I wanted to add to the chiefs, the delay, our normal response time is about 45 minutes for full mobilization. And so I've asked the chief that if their trailer is called out for a water event, I don't care what it is, if their trailer is called out, we're called. Then while they're responding, we're coming in. And so it takes a lag between the big guns coming in and their first response. And that puts us right reinforcing them immediately. And so we're hitting it hard. And if it's an overkill, we'd rather be on overkill than underkill. And so I just wanted to let you know about that. We're trying to attempt to cut that delay between the two different departments down. As far as public services and the floods, we are mainly monitoring and maintaining the rivers and the creeks around the city that we know we have problems with and where we have problems with. We've been spending the last couple months cleaning debris out of the river, cleaning trees out of the river, and, beaver dams, you name it. And we've been monitoring this. The big joke is I told them the reservoir is going to fill this year, and I've been monitoring it since last fall. And I told them early on, well, the reservoir is going to fill and we don't need any more snow. We just kept getting snow, kept getting snow, kept getting snow. So right now we've been monitoring our trouble areas, and we've just been looking for threats. And as the water rises, even though we spent the last 2 months getting rid of debris out of the river, high water flows, no matter how good a job we does loosen additional trees. And so we've had about 7 trees in the last couple of weeks loosen up on the banks. Forestry crew's gone in and removed them during high water, which is not a thing you really want to do because it's a pretty dangerous operation to put a tree in and put men in with chainsaws in high flow. But we've done it and we've kept it. In addition, like the chief mentioned, our lesson from Douglas, which I've been here 37 years, I've never seen Douglas do that. But we thought we might have another situation. We didn't want to take the chance of just sitting back. So we got with police. My folks got with police, and they went up and flew the areas that we know we have drainage possible problems, and they flew it with a drone. And we were looking for things that we weren't anticipating. And so we did put that into operation. We didn't find anything abnormal. But yet again, that's one thing we're going to incorporate from now on. This was a couple months ago. We had a large beaver dam that would have If it would have been left in, it would have flooded the neighborhood just east of Harrison Boulevard, right by Big D Sports Park. We went in and tore out that beaver dam and all the other debris that we find there. We've been cleaning storm drains in our inlets. The problem is, if you can bear with me, we've had very few times we could see our inlets because it wouldn't stop snowing. And so that's why we've asked publicly for the public to help us keep our inlets clean, because we're a little behind because of the snowpacks that we've had. And so that's something that the public could greatly help us with, and just be eyes for us. If they're seeing water that's not supposed to be in an area, they've never seen it, notify us. We'll come up and we'll check for threat, do a threat assessment on it. And we've established pre-deployed secured locations so that we can respond immediately. We will respond immediately with our pre-deployed and loaded sandbags, but we also have pre-deployed locations that we have a shorter run to than where we store most of our sandbags. And this is the data I've been looking at every day. Brady's been looking at it, Vince has been looking at it. We monitor it daily, multiple times during the day. And what this means is, to us, is this is the actual numbers that Vince actually tracks on a daily, twice a day. He does twice a day, but I instigated 2.5 weeks ago Riverwatch. Riverwatch means that I activate my people to at least have supervisors assigned to certain structures or certain places we know we have problems, and they check it twice a day. It puts my standbys out in late evenings after the crews have gone home, and puts the supervisors out early in the morning so that we have eyes on a lot more than what we normally would have. And we noticed on the 15th, it drew attention to me that we had a problem with our measuring stations, and it's a USGS station. And so we called USGS, and now if you notice today's readings back online, we should always have more water at Gibson than we do right below the dam. And so we were wanting to make sure we rely on this information and we use it to know exactly where we're going to be at, because we know what 1,500 CFS, cubic feet per second, looks like on Lincoln Bridge. Lincoln Bridge is our lowest bridge, and so we watch it above all the others because that's the first one that's going to be compromised. This is what our snow water equivalent looks like this year. That black line is this year, and the blue line is a normal heavy year. And so everyone can understand what the water equivalent is basically, as a general rule, you get 1 inch of water with 12 inches of snow. Every storm we've had this year has been anywhere from 1 inch to 3.5 inches for 12 inches of snow.
Oh, I know, I've shoveled it, I know.
It's been very, very wet, very, very dense. And that's why the avalanche danger's been so high, because it's an unstable snow, and especially if it's on top of a lighter snow. But we've never seen it this wet. And the problem with that is we still have that water up there. We peaked at a little over 40 inches of water in our watershed. That's 40 inches of water. And we're down to 38 inches. That's still a lot of water. Pine View holds 110,000 acre feet. Our watershed right now has 309,000 acre feet. We can fill the reservoir 3 times. And so we watch, and if you've seen in the previous slide, we also monitor the reservoir levels. And Pine View was yesterday at 22.7% of capacity. Today it was at 22.4%. I know Pine View is trying to get that down to 20%, because there'll be a point in time when the water going in the reservoir will exceed the water we can release from the reservoir. And that time period needs to be timed so that when that happens, it fills the reservoir but doesn't go over the overflow. And that's a very exact science that Weber Basin has always been extremely good at. I don't know where they get their crystal ball, but that's a hard thing to manage. And so we need to get rid of some of the water. And what that means, this is what our watersheds look like. We're at 222% of normal. So we've got a lot of water. I know there's been a lot said about sandbags. We do have 2,000 stored right now. We have 40,000 sandbags empty with 4 loads of salt, sand in place to fill them with. As soon as we fill a sandbag, it starts disintegrating. So we try to keep them dry as long as we can. And we keep our sandbags in reserves so that we've done pre-deployments before and the sandbags end up in places that are never needed. And like the chief said, you know, we've been criticized for holding our sandbags back, but my first and my most important devotion is to the citizens of Ogden. And I'm here to protect the citizens of Ogden. We did deploy some sandbags to North Ogden. They're a good partner. They're a good neighbor city. And they did reimburse us right away. We made sure of that. But our sandbags are for our citizens and where we need them and where we think we have a threat. My Parks Division, under the guidance of the supervisor, Jacob Chadwick, and the structural crew in Parks, made a new sand machine that they had visions. They couldn't sleep. They had this vision in their head. Well, the first time they use this, the hopper that you can see coming down, it holds enough to fill 80 sandbags. They did it in 20 minutes, the first time they even tried it. So we know that we can get 240 per hour just first time we ever used it. So we think with this, and the one that the streets crews uses with volunteers is that the one with the loader bucket right there. It's a simple hand operated, but they can do 200 per hour with that one, and we've done it in the past. And so we know our capabilities is 500 sandbags per hour at least. And that's without any additional volunteers filling sandbags. That's just doing the normal operation. We've now loaded the transport. The transport is ready to leave the yard at any time. That's the chief's big gun initial attack there. That's our first response from public services. The trailer up in the upper left is code enforcement. They've never been involved with a response ever before. Now they'll be responding with us and fire. And we also have another trailer in Parks for the north end of town that is another 2 pallets of sandbags that'll be deployed immediately when the transports go out. So we're going to be hitting hard and heavy from now on. And even if, like I said, I'd rather have an overkill than an underkill. We did notice we had a threat at Fort Benaventura and Miles Goodyear Park. As you know, we lost that park several years ago to the river. We weren't going to lose it again. We monitored it. We kept watching it. Finally, we realized we had a threat. We went in and built a berm. And you can see the berm at the bottom. That's when we was installing the berm. By the time we reinforced it, we had a snowstorm again, like we needed more snow. And we were reinforcing the berm. The day after we had the berm done, the river hit the berm. So we deployed at the right time, which the chief pointed out. That's the big question. When's the right time? We think we know on the stuff we know how to respond. And that's just it. And just so you know, these are billboard vinyl covers. They're cheap and they're very effective. So that's what I have. Is there any
That's a ton
question?
of work.
We are ready. We are determined to be on the offense. We are monitoring. We are doing the things we need to do to keep our public safe. We do have a couple areas. We've only given in to one group, and we have a couple members in the chambers tonight that we've given sandbags to, and that's because they are in a risk area that we're not willing to jeopardize, and that's Storm Creek. We've had problems with that in the past, and we've also had problems with Buse. And so those are two areas we're monitoring very tight. We also have problems in the properties right across from the timber mine. Those homes in there, they're the first to flood usually. We're watching those very carefully. We're watching River Drive extremely closely because we have flooded in there in the past. It usually is later than the mouth of the canyon. The other thing is we've plugged the storm sewer at 32nd and Pingree. That's where it backs up from the river into our storm system. And the first place we can get to is actually in the neighborhood because it's a main trunk line in there. So we plug the neighborhood. And so if it rains or snows, we got to get enough water build up to push the water into the storm drain. If we can't push the water in the storm drain, we pump it to another part of our system. But we watch, now we manually watch that neighborhood so they don't flood. We also had a situation several years ago since I became director, we had 5 to 7 locations on the Ogden River that stormwater backed up and would flood areas just coming back from the river from our own system and flooding us. We tried some new technology several years ago and used new back flaps on those. That it's a one-way valve. We had back flaps on them before. They were old technology. We got these new ones. They have done 0 leaking, and those areas are contained and they're secured. So there's a lot of things we've done in the last few years to work towards this problem we're going to have this year, and there's stuff we're still working on every day.
Any questions for Jay? All right.
Hello, for those that you don't know, I'm Kenny Miller. I'm the new emergency manager for Ogden City. To kind of build off of what Jay and the chief said, back, I can't remember if it was January or February, I met with Public Works just so I had an idea of what plans we had in place because we knew this was going to be an issue. And at first that meeting, Public Works let me know that what they plan on doing when the snow melt starts to hit, like he said, monitor every storm drain or every creek, every river, all the bridges. They have those plans in place, and I felt comfortable with those plans. If any of those plans or if any of those creeks overflowed their banks, I knew we'd be ready as a city to back those up, divert the water to keep it where it needed to be. Like Chief said, this one at the top of Douglas was just kind of an anomaly for us. When our battalion chief on scene called me and said, "Hey, we need to get a hold of Public Works, but I do have water at the top of Douglas," and I'm like, "No, you don't. Like, you don't have water up there because we don't have water up there." And my first thought was they're filling the canals. We have a break of some sort, and it's the canal water that's kind of coming down, which would cause us more problems. Just to reiterate what they were saying is we've had plans in place for ever since the snow started to fall. It's those plans are solid, but when it comes from another area and we realize they're not, we have to redevelop, and that's what we did last week. We need to figure out another way so we can get all these sandbags to where they need to be when we don't expect it, when the water's where we don't expect it. On my first slide, just to kind of talk a little bit about what I've been doing, is emergency management. I'm just basically coordinating with all of our partners. Like I stated, I've been coordinating with public services quite a bit. Of course, the fire department, because that's where I'm housed, and then the police department, and then all the other department heads. This picture that it shows right here is basically a log jam of blockages of what we have at the railroad trestle at Exchange Road, right on off of West 21st Street. Just to give you a little bit of history on this picture was taken on Friday morning. Wednesday afternoon, there was a crew there clearing the log jam. This is 2 days of buildup of debris that comes down the river. So far, one of our partners, you can see on there, Utah Central Railroad, they've cleaned that bridge 3 times. The reason why that's important is because when the water backs up there, then it inundates all of a sudden Ogden City's property. It backs up into the field, Miles Goodyear Park there into the fields and up into Fort Buenaventura. So if we can keep these things clear, then it helps us out because it protects our infrastructure, but also protects their infrastructure. So I coordinate with all these other groups. On the outside agencies, you can see there I'm in constant communication with the Weber County Emergency Manager, Lisa. She does a great job of letting me know what's happening in the county, not to mention what could possibly be happening in the city because of issues they're having in the county. Rivers flow through our city. It doesn't mean once it goes through our city, it won't affect us, but if it backs up down low, then it causes us more problems. So I'm in constant communication with them. And the other departments that I'm dealing with is constant with the State Department of Emergency Management. And then recently I've been getting a lot of community groups reaching out to me asking, what can we do? So when these meetings with public services, we got a hold of our volunteer coordinator, and she created a web link for these volunteer groups to click on, to sign up for their groups, to let them know how many people they could have, what they're available for, and how quick their response would be. Once we get all the sandbags there from Public Works and everything, we do have people there to pass them out, but it's going to take some time. So the more volunteers we have, the better off we're going to be. The good thing about our city is that the residents of our city care about each other and care about the city. And it shows on that very first slide with all the people up on the mountainside. Councilmember Ritchie saw it. One of the members of the group sent out a text to hundreds of people basically saying we need help, and swarms of people showed up. So that makes me sleep a little bit easier at night, knowing once we get the resources there, we're always going to have enough people there to help out, because everybody here does care about the city that we do live in. So this picture right here is the Brentag Bridge, which is a walkway bridge that you can see debris builds up on that. So that was another partner that we noticed and that reached out to me and said, what can we do? We need to clear out this debris. The only problem they had was they couldn't access it from their property. So I got a hold of our community development, or the CED department, and they allowed them to get on the old Swift building site to access the river to get that blockage done once again, so we don't have issues further upstream from that footbridge. So keeping in constant contact with our partners, our stakeholders in the city, the people that we work with day in and day out, helps us keep these mitigation issues or keep the mitigation projects moving forward. This is one of the things I get from the state every day, and it's called a SITREP, basically a situation report. And what this does, the thing about this is it tells us what's happening throughout the state. On the next page of this that I didn't attach, it shows every region, and there's not a lot of things that are happening in our region currently right now. And the reason why is because the stuff that we're having is very minor. The report that I got today, they're talking about how all these other cities has declared a local emergency. Immigration Creek, they're expecting to overflow their banks tonight. Us in our region, we're doing a very good job, and I believe it's because of all the work that we've done since 2011 when we had some major issues with all the engineering, all the things that we've done to create or to help mitigate these issues. Public Works Department's done a great job of doing mitigation work up on Strong Creek to help it stay within its banks next time we have these big flooding events, and it's showing currently right now. The only thing we ask currently is that the weather cooperates with us, and it's just kind of a gradual warm-up. We don't want these big 80-degree days anymore, because that will start causing everybody issues. But the good thing about this situation report is it'll give me some information on what we can expect to see because other communities are dealing with it, or what we can expect to do when these situations happen to us, if it ever does. Gives us a weather risk outlook stating this is what we're expecting for the week, if you can trust forecasters, however that may work. But we're expecting high temperatures, so you're going to get a lot of melt off, or moderate temperatures, so we don't expect any sort of runoff, snow melt, whatever it may be. And then this currently right here is what police and fire, we did a coordinated attack on social media, basically letting the residents know we can't do this by ourselves. So what the residents did correctly at the top of Douglas is they saw water coming down the hill and they notified the officials. Like Chief Matthews said, our response wasn't what we felt was sufficient enough, so we've changed our protocols to fix that. But we need the community's help, the residents' help. When you see these runoff events happening, the snow melt coming down the hillside that maybe you haven't seen before, and or if these rivers, streams, and creeks are going over their banks, please reach out to us and let us know. That way we can mobilize those units that need to respond. Jay's crew works, like he stated, checks the rivers every morning and the creeks every morning and every evening. If there's an imminent threat on any of those creeks at any point in time when they check them, they're gonna deploy those resources to make sure they stay within the banks. If it happens, they check it at 5 o'clock as they're getting ready to go home, and they say tonight it's gonna go over its banks, we're deploying all these resources to make sure that doesn't happen in the middle of the night. As we all know, things like this usually don't happen at a convenient time for everybody. So we put this out onto all the Ogden Fires and Ogden PD's social media. We've also given it to our communication team. They've put it on the website. And then Weber Consolidated Dispatch has this same information. So if somebody calls in and says, hey, we have this issue, they know what to do. I've highlighted the numbers that we've sent the public to call. Basically, it's the public works number and business hours, or then the non-emergency number after hours. We like to say that, please don't call 911 just for, that's a life or death situation emergency. However, if you can't remember these numbers, get a hold of dispatch, call and get us out there so we can get these issues taken care of. That's our main goal, is to protect the city and protect the residents that live here. And that's all I have. So if there's any other questions for us or over the entire presentation, you can call us back up and we can answer them for you.
I have a quick question. So I know that you did the social media share, but I'm just wondering, when there's an event, like the volunteers are coming up there, you're saying there's a URL for volunteer groups to sign up for, and will they get notified through text, or how does that work?
So I believe what happens with that, so first of all, they have to get a hold of somebody to, I don't know, Jay, is that, well, there is that on our website that they can go and click on?
Yeah, and Stacy right now has collected 71 individuals. What their response times are, when they'll be able to respond, and their phone number, their contact information. And she has several groups too, besides the individuals. And so we have one point of contact, and we know how long it's going to take them to deploy and any limitations on that. And she's keeping a running total of that.
I believe the link is on Ogden City's actual webpage. If the groups reach out to me and contact me, a lot of times they reach out to the county, and then the county EM sends them towards me, and then I send them the information. It's usually, if they email me, I'll email them back. If they call me, I'll usually give them a phone call back to let them know, and then send that email to them so they do have that link. So when these groups reach out to me, because I'm the emergency manager, I'm supposed to have all this stuff dialed in. We send it out to them so they know that if the issue does arise, that we will call on them.
And then my last question, sorry, I'm hogging all the questions, but so what about like the emergency text response tool that we were kind of publicizing before, that's for emergency response? Would that be used in any of these cases, or is that specific for some other use?
I'm going to apologize because I have no idea what that is.
Isn't there some kind of
Code red?
Code red?
Oh, the code red.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Am I making
so
that up?
the code red is for basically emergency notifications. I don't. I manage that through the emergency management side of it, and for the most part, what I've been told is these code reds are for possibly emergency, which could. Yeah, basically life-threatening. So if we have to have a shelter in place because of a certain criminal activity that's happening or whatever, so that's what the code red is for. The only problem with the code red is it will only reach those people who have signed up for it.
Why not?
Yeah, so it's not the best tool to use currently. If we have a major hillside coming down, landslide event or things like that, Code Red will be used because it can be used for or like the reverse 911 in that area. We can do that to let those residents know, hey, the hillside's moving. We have a evacuation in place. You need to get out now. That's going to be our worst case scenario. Hopefully, if we start seeing things slide or the hillside's moving, we know those areas that we currently have. Public Works is also monitoring those areas, making sure that they are staying stable because the ground is so saturated. But we would use that in that instance, or like the reverse 911. Yeah, Code Red isn't the best tool for this currently, yeah.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. I just wasn't
Yeah.
remember.
I would just add as well, we have an emergency like we did during COVID, 8 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, all the department directors, because we don't know who this is going to touch and who it's not, but every single 8 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the next 2 months, we have a meeting to just get a status update on what's going on and who's doing what and where, and making sure that all of our teams are coordinated as we look at this, because it's not just the fire department or public works or anybody else. Collectively, we've all got to be on the same page with this and understand what's happening.
And I appreciate you bringing that up. That was actually on my notes, but
There's a lot.
Yeah, I don't like looking at them. And but yeah, that's one of the things we instituted is for the next 5 weeks, I believe is what it is. It can be a 5-minute meeting, everything's cool, or it can be an hour-long meeting. This is the things that we're dealing with. These are the issues that we're taking care of. It involves what I like to call the policy group, part of my EOC. So all the department heads, the mayor, the CAO, anybody, Vince is on there. Anybody that could be that it could affect when we start flooding. People that are taking care of the issues currently that we're doing. So appreciate you bringing that up.
I just was going to ask. I don't. That Douglas could have certainly been worse. I think that natural choke point where you hiked up to maybe helped protect the massive flow. But was there any private property damage on that one, or were we able to successfully divert the water?
To my knowledge, up to date, we haven't had any sort of flooding issues that has affected private property that has gotten into the homes. Okay. We do have a lot of homes that have groundwater, those are the seepage and things like that, but that's things that truly we can't control. We're letting people know as hard as it is, the groundwater and the water on your property from snow melt that has built up around your foundation thing, that's kind of your responsibility. As for the water coming down the hillside, it flowed into this gentleman's yard. The fire crew that showed up did help him move some railroad ties to kind of help divert it and things like that. Once Public Works got there and we got some sandbags, they did put them around his little patio area where the water was getting close to coming into his property, but no water ever entered into his home. It just basically stayed onto his grass and things. And that was the I guess the saving grace with what happened earlier was all the natural vegetation that was up there, because the majority of the snow from basically the canal road or the trail has been melted off. So when the water came down with the debris, it got caught on the natural vegetation and things like that, which helped slow the mud flow down and things and didn't bring it all into people's property. The pictures that the chief showed with the manhole cover being filled and everything like that, that was the next night because of work that the canal company did up on there to try to reroute the normal flow because they thought it was going to undermine the canal, which would cause us more problems. So we're thankful that they did that, but by digging new trenches and things like that, it brought that new fresh dirt down, which then started plugging our infrastructure, which then caused us issues. So, but we were able to mitigate that. Like Chief said, just 3 hours prior to we deployed, or we put our sandbag truck and trailer in the stacks, and so when a call came in of flooding, that went right out, and they started throwing sandbags to help divert the water to keep it in the storm drain so it didn't go into other people's property. So, okay, thank you.
Hey, I got a question for you.
Okay.
So, and maybe it's for the mayor and Jay too, but do you guys have enough funding budgeted for all of the overtime that's coming?
I would say we will make sure that that's covered. And when you look at the overtime for all the plowing and salting and everything else that they've done, Public Works they've been working hard and they have been in a hole for a long time. And we expect this will take all of our efforts. That's why we wanted everybody, not just public safety and public services, but we wanted our finance team and everybody else. They're all on that call Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So we can figure out how that's going to work, and we'll make sure that it works.
Thanks for your leadership in doing that. We've been through some similar experiences in my day job with just the worst winter on record, and this stuff just grinds on people. I mean, grinds on staff and grinds them into the ground, really. So, especially when you're talking about the same people that had to do all the snow plowing now have to do a lot of the sandbagging. So, for anybody listening in the public, just remember we've got some people that are really tired already, I'm guessing. Remember grace, remember love, remember support and appreciation for one another. They're not just a public servant that we pay with our tax money. They're people that live in this community and help protect and support our community, and they're tired, I'm sure. So for volunteers, we've got Sebastian's in the room, so it makes me think about, hopefully Stacy Olson has our emergency response coordinators for each of the wards and stakes. I know Sebastian is for both in our area, and he can mobilize just single-handedly a bunch of people. So hopefully that list of 71 or whatever includes those people.
If that list isn't there, if you can get it to me, we'll make sure that it gets put on there. I have been talking to someone that actually used to work for the fire department, now works up at Ogden Regional. I sent his stake to that website, and he got on there and logged everything on. A gentleman from the ward from there at the top of Douglas, he sent me all of his information. I pointed him there. So I'm hoping that information gets out, but just if it doesn't, please get it to me. Give me those contacts, let me know, and I'll reach out to him so we can get him in the right direction. Going off of your question about overtime, things like that, I don't know if everybody saw before the meeting started, the state did declare a state of emergency for the state because of all these flooding issues. Last week I did have a meeting with our county EMs, and the state representative was there letting us know how to, the proper ways to declare local emergency and things like that. I have sent all that information to the policy group, the mayor, the CAO, all those people. Currently, right now, our finance department has set up a project accounting that we are tracking all of our hours into that. So if the time does come where it does become a state emergency like it has been, we declare a local emergency, we can possibly get reimbursed with state funds and or federal funds for that. So one of the plans that we did have in place, and Lisa Stout, she's been awesome working with me on all this stuff, is she had all this stuff lined up and said, okay, this is where we're putting it, we're ready to go, keep all your paperwork here. And so we got it sent out to all the department heads, all the people that are doing the payroll and things like that. So hopefully we're keeping a good track of documenting all this information. So if the time comes, we can come back and hopefully recoup some of our funds.
Perfect.
So
just want to thank you guys for all the sleep you've already lost and the sleep that to be lost ahead. I think we've done a ton in the past. That helps a lot. Jay and everybody else here has a lot of experience that helps so that we know where the problems are going to be. But at the end of the day, I think we always need to remember that no community is safe for what's coming. We don't know what's coming. So when something breaks loose, just remember, if anybody's listening, that the best we can do is the infrastructure repairs we've already done for what we know is coming, and then just be prepared to respond to whatever's coming. So everything you just shared today is a huge help and giving me that comfort, and hopefully others that are watching.
I will say the main thing that I pulled away from being in this position just over 7 months is if I ever need anything, I just reach out to anybody in the city, and they're there for me to help out. We work great as a team. Every time I've got a hold of PD, Public Works, just even finance, they've bent over backwards to help me get comfortable, to know my place, to know where I need to be, to know what I need to do. And so I may not have all the answers right now, but eventually I know who to ask, and we will get the answers for everybody. We work as a great team here in the city, and it's very refreshing. It makes my job a whole lot easier.
I remember when we were going through the tax increase questions, someone said you should have a volunteer fire department. I think this is proof we shouldn't. But
I would add one thing really quickly as well. It was lost on the slide, but when we're talking about Public Works, a tip of the cap to them. They all came together. They couldn't sleep at night, and they figured out how to make a sandbagging machine and do 500 sandbags per hour. And those guys just slept with that anxiety and stress and figured out how how to get that done and how to deploy them. And if you look at the trailers and it is a full court press on making sure everybody's ready, and we're coordinated. So I want to tip my cap to Jay and his crew and the chief and Kenny, to your efforts. You guys have done an amazing job trying to prepare for this.
Jay's crew did a phenomenal job with that thing, and it saved the city quite a bit of money.
amazing.
Just as of when we were talking about sandbags at the very first, the county stated that we don't have a sandbag machine and or the funds to purchase one. So by Jay's crew doing that, it saved quite a bit of money and also a lot of backs in the city from filling sandbags.
No kidding. I would rather do that. I think there's some questions or comments on the other side of the.
Yeah, I just have a quick comment, and following up with what Councilmember Nadolski said. Thank you for all your hard work. And I think one of the things that we forget is that, and you just said it, that sometimes we don't know all the answers. And for you to publicly come and say, we didn't know all the answers, but we got together and changed the process and changed how we were doing things. It's really hard for, I think, a city to sometimes admit that maybe that we don't know all the answers. And so being very transparent to us and telling us that and telling the public that we didn't know everything that went on. And so I applaud you for that, because that is a hard thing to do, to come in front of us and the public to say, hey, we didn't know everything, but we changed our process and for the better. So thank you for doing that as well.
Welcome.
Sure.
Chair, I've got I'm hoping a lot of our citizens are listening in today. We were out at the sewer board meeting last night. We asked about the flows again, and the mayor maybe can help me with the numbers, but they're pretty well at capacity with how much sewage can be processed. So it's really important that our groundwater that comes up and needs to be pumped with a sump pump needs to go to the storm system, not the drain. That's just get it to the gutter. It'll go where it needs to go from there. But we got to make sure that we don't be burdening that system. Those people in Far West will appreciate it when they don't have sewage coming up in their drains.
Yikes.
So,
Good
and
call.
thank you. I'll tip the hat to you. It's been great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Great. Well, up next we have public comments. This is an opportunity to address the council about any concerns or ideas. You just step up to the podium and you state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to speak. And if you're online, if you're on the Zoom meeting, you can raise your hand and then we'll call on you.
Thank you. I am Sebastian Benitez from 3310 Taylor Avenue. Yeah, like Ben mentioned, I am the service coordinator for the LDS Church, and I want you to know we have 1,800 voluntary in the East Bench, ready to go. We have 24 coordinator, and I want to thanks to you guys for your great job. And
They're out of here.
it's okay.
7:30.
But my special thing is to Justin Anderson and Vincent, Bill, and Ben to help. Last Saturday we have the first test. We have already set up a lot of around 300 sandbag in the critical areas. And I thank Justin because he provide to us the map, and telling us which houses are in high risk, and to cover these two creek, and by my house, and by the Manquar Park, we are ready to help. We can disappoint in many things, but in this situation, we can hug and kiss together, and help. And I want to, we have all the information, and I am so grateful for Justin. He provides so many things to us, and special training in some way, and provide the sandbags, and this coming Saturday, and we are going to fill more and cover and keep safe, Just I want to thank to you guys for the help you are providing, especially the fire department now, because no record about this snow and this water, you know. But I want to thank to you, and we are ready to help. And Jay, you said, I am here to protect the citizen of Ogden. I love that. I can say to you and to everyone, we, the citizen, are ready to voluntary and help in anywhere. And if the water come too fast, if we will help. That is the only thing I want to express to you guys. And I love Ogden. Truly, I love Ogden, and I made Ogden my town, and I raised my children here. That is I feel proud to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for all of your
Sorry,
efforts.
I need to leave.
Okay, get going. Anyone else? I don't see any hands online. Oh, there we go. Welcome.
Hi, my name's Teresa Bramwell. I want to echo what the chief said earlier. We need to understand what happened before in order to prepare for when it happens again. Everybody's watching Ogden City. I've printed out a few articles about things that are important to me. The first one is from the New York Times. It says, "Outdoors is the way up in Ogden, Utah," from June 22nd, 2007. "The city is poised to be the high adventure mecca of the country," said Mayor Matthew Godfrey. "Despite the lingering rough town image, development continues. The mayor is seeking to build a gondola that would connect downtown to a proposed ski resort and resort community that would occupy nearly 1,000 acres to include Malin's Basin. Beyond the added $10 million in tax revenues the mayor expects from the private investment, the mayor says he's intrigued with the urban to mountain experience the gondola would create." The second one is from the Deseret News, August 1st, 2010. "Ogden weighs streetcar placement." Ogden's Central Bench Historic District residents who have renamed the area the Trolley District want streetcars along 25th Street. The alignment would include their neighborhood and the houses of Ogden's famous families: firearms innovator John Browning and lumber and banking capitalist David Eccles, and the independent art galleries, shops, and eateries on 25th Street between Washington Boulevard and Wall Avenue. The Ogden Planning Commission in the spring of 2006 voted in favor of a mass transit along 25th Street, Harrison Boulevard to Weber State. Back in those days, Godfrey was urging an aerial urban gondola. The Planning Commission favored streetcars first and the gondola for further study. Ogden urban gondola idea resurfaces in consultant's plan. This is the Associated Press, June 4th, 2018. "A plan for an urban gondola rising above the city of Ogden is among the ideas advanced in a report commissioned by county leaders who have spent almost $500,000 on economic development and public relations contracts since 2015. "Eminent domain stirs Walmart controversy in Ogden." This is from KSL, February 21st, 2005. "A new Walmart store is once again stirring controversy, this time in Ogden. The fight over the tool a government used called eminent domain. That means property owners can be forced to sell." Here's another one from ABC News. "Ogden homeowners prepare to fight eminent domain." I'll continue this next week.
Okay, thank you.
This is important.
Thank you. We have one person. Oh, you're coming up.
Heath Sato, Ogden resident. Hi. Last RDA meeting, I spoke of a third developer for the 550 24th Street development, one that presented ideas to the current CED director for that property prior to the RFQ process. That developer was personally assured they would be contacted by the CED when an RFQ was released. They were not. While maybe there's no legal requirement to get as many quality proposals as possible, this appears to rise at least to the level of nonfeasance. That should be unacceptable to every single one of you. Nobody's reached out to me about those comments, particularly the 4 council members that voted yes on that development. That's kind of surprised me, honestly. I need to repeat that what you have heard from me, other citizens, and even other council members, developers are being actively discouraged from even trying to invest in Ogden. They have learned it's wiser to invest in other cities unless they are on the inside track in Ogden. I don't know what it's going to take to bring about actual, functional, serious change to the process. I'm not against growth. I'm not against development. I just ask you to start looking a little bit harder at these deals. And I'm sorry, but I have to address what happened right here in these chambers just before this meeting started. The Director of Community and Economic Development, Brandon Cooper, walked behind me, slapped me on the shoulder, and said fairly loudly, "I can't wait to hear what you're here to lie about today." I didn't respond, but I think at least one of you heard it. I understand the concerns I'm drawing attention to, maybe unwelcome sunshine, disinfectant to some people's plans, and it's fine if someone disagrees with me. I know I'm imperfect, but one thing I am absolutely not is a liar. Thanks.
Any other comments in the chamber?
Hi there, I'm Carolyn Lee Tuvenikas, and I'm sorry I'm late. I was at the County Commission meeting. So I wasn't here for the bulk of your meeting. I'm sorry about that. But to tail on to what Teresa said, she was listing off things about eminent domain. And it's interesting that the Utah Constitution is very specific about how property can be taken for public good. Article 22, or Article 1, Section 22, private property for public use. Private property shall not be taken or damaged for public use without just compensation. Second one, Article 1, Section 7, due process of law. No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. The fact that she's here again complaining about her property perhaps suggests to me that the policies that you all have adopted are designed to fatigue her into abandoning or selling or you confiscating under eminent domain her property. And that's shameful. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. Life, liberty, or property. You may not like her property, you may not like her. I don't know either one. But she has a right for you guys to protect her property. And in the grand scheme of your Wonder Block project, you don't have a right to steal it from her. Now, several of you commissioners have met with some of my fellow citizens, and we're discussing with you the role of the lesser magistrate, the doctrine of the lesser magistrate. And to those of you that have returned our call and met with us and were at least patiently attentive, we appreciate that. Those of you who have not or avoiding us, that's noted as well. We're not going to chase you forever. You're not going to fatigue us into compliance. But I can assure you that I study law frequently all the time. I mean, 20 hours a day. It's going to be very bad for you when I decide to start dropping petitions on this chamber. And you have to answer for some of the things that have gone on. Agenda 21, now Agenda 2030, now Agenda 2050, the World Economic Forum, sustainable development, the New Green Deal, all of those are buzzwords for globalizing our world and completely abrogating our United States Constitution. You do not have a right to steal that from our posterity, from your children and the next generation. You don't have a right to. Y'all need to think long and hard about the actions you're taking. Every bill that you guys do should have a opportunity for constitutional evaluation. Thank you for giving me a second yet.
Thank you.
Constitutional evaluation. Nothing should go past you if it violates the Constitution or God's law.
Thank you so
That
much,
word's coming.
Karen.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the chamber? Okay, great. We can go online with Angel Castillo. I think you'll be allowed to talk here in a moment. You can just take yourself off mute.
Good evening, Angel Castillo, Ogden resident. I wish I could be in person today, but I am in San Diego, which finally just got sunny. I've been talking to a whole bunch of people, and you've had better weather than we have. I am here for the ASU-GSD convention, which is an education summit, and I get the pleasure of being sent here because of the work that I do with the Utah Multicultural Affairs Education Committee. So, learning lots of stuff. Again, I am very grateful that these meetings are streamed so that we can do things that we need to do and still be connected to our community. I would like to thank Chief Matthew for his leadership. His catastrophic event debrief was stellar and is exactly what it's supposed to be, and that is what leadership is accepting responsibility whenever things happen. It doesn't matter if they didn't go exactly as you planned, but to own them and then review them and then fix them and come up with solutions is brilliant. And he did a great job. And I have no issue with his staff not reacting in a different way, as he had pointed out. They're not hydrologists, they're firefighters. They're there for saving lives. What I did see that he did that I would like to see more of, and I was extraordinarily disappointed when I brought this up to Mark Johnson on the 21st of March, is that we should have had these kind of scenario meetings then. We should have had the planning for catastrophic events then, particularly because we've never seen water like this. I stopped counting it after that was 16 listening. We have a historic snowpack. We've never seen this kind of snow, and so of course it's going to get really strange. And as our community shows, Ogden is amazing. People show up for each other, and I would really like to see a commitment by the administration to make sure that they're truly connected and putting people together. And while I heard that the mayor is going to be having quick check-in meetings, we should have been doing this about a month ago. So maybe we could continue looking towards fire season and going through this kind of scenario planning for fire season so that when something like this happens, we have a plan. Again, Chief Matthew has done an exceptional job, and I think our first responders are top-notch. And I also still think that they deserve more money. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments online? I'm not seeing any hands or any movement. So we'll move on to comments from the mayor.
I have nothing else to add. Thank you very much.
And any comments from council members?
I have a couple things. Because the mayor didn't take credit for it, I'll give him credit. Last week, I had the opportunity to go to a public safety parade up at Ogden High School. The mayor and his team put together a little parade up at Ogden High to kind of thank those first responders to come up and protect what we thought then was a significant threat. It was neat to see all those officers. The students of Ogden High lined the hallways. The officers walked down in the little parade route inside the school, and they all applauded and thanked them and held banners and signs, and it was really neat. I also thought it was very neat that although Mayor Caldwell got a huge ovation, it wasn't nearly as big as the officer that's assigned to the school, which says a lot about the job he does, and again, the way he does it, and the respect and the respect he has up at that school. But it was neat to see them all thank our officers, and it's we talked about this before. It's wonderful to be able to see our team be able to respond at the right time when they're needed and when they're called upon, and to be able to perform with honor and dignity. So it was neat to be able to be part of that that celebration and to be able to thank them like that. So bravo to Mayor Caldwell and his team for putting that together. And then I'll echo the comments that went on a little bit about the leadership. It takes a great deal of leadership to put those meetings together and to be able to address the needs and address even if there is a shortfall or a misstep along the way, to be able to address that. And I think that speaks volume, not only to Mayor Caldwell and his team, but also to all those department directors and all those people in our city that are willing to work and put in the work. So I've said it before, it truly is an honor to be able to sit up here and to be a part of and to be able to witness the great acts of leadership and of service that take place in our community. So this last week was just another testament of that.
Any other comments? Okay, great. Well, I'm happy to take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you all so much.